Welcome everybody to the Pakistan Graduate Mentorship Programme for 2022 through 2023 to 2024. Today is the third week, the third workshop where we'll be focusing on essentially writing your CV for graduate applications. So this is a project in collaboration with the project EduAccess. So I'm actually one of the volunteers for the Oxford Pakistan program. So are you able to hear me? By the way, is everyone able to hear me clearly? Hello?
Ali, we're all able to hear you just fine. I would recommend Tarikan, maybe you could drop off the call and rejoin.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Excellent. So, okay. So, I'm one of the OPP scholars. I received a studentship, and I'm currently doing my MPhil in development studies. And today I'll be hosting this workshop. A little bit of background about the Oxford Pakistan program. It's a program based at Lady Margaret Hall at Oxford, which focuses on increasing representation of Pakistanis at Oxford through various initiatives. Initially, when the Oxford Pakistan program started, there were 4 scholars, and this year this number has expanded to 10. As I mentioned, that we work on various initiatives, and one of the initiatives that we are running alongside Project EduAccess is the Pakistan Graduate Mentorship Programme. Could we go to the next slide, please? So this is the outline of the workshop. Essentially, what we'll be focusing on, I'll be introducing the panelists. I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. We'll do a short recap from the first workshop, and then I'll be handing it over to Zara to discuss what is a CV, the common heads in a PhD proposal, etc., etc. And so that's how the structure of the presentation will follow. At the end, we will be taking questions from everybody. So yeah, Fatima, if you could please. Yeah. So about the workshop, we've put together a 10-part workshop series for mentees on the Pakistan Graduate Mentorship Programme. This is the third workshop, and these workshops will cover all the different aspects of university and scholarship applications. So CV writing, drafting your statement of purpose, and this is supposed to supplement the kind of mentorship, one-on-one mentorship that you'd be receiving with the program. So today's workshop, we're basically, as I mentioned, going to be providing guidance on how to build a strong curriculum vitae or resume. And it is particularly tailored for the graduate program applications, emphasizing sort of academic achievement, research experience, and relevant skills, all the kind of things that would help your CV stand out when you're making an application. So meet your panelists for today. We have Fatima Ezaz, who has kindly stepped in to help me go through the presentation. And we have Zara Ayaz, Hamza Nadeem, and Mariam Naqvi. So maybe, Fatima, you could introduce yourself briefly before we go to Zara, Hamza, and Mariam.
Hi everyone, I'm Fatima, and I have done my master's in education from Harvard, and I'm here to talk about the CV process. A very boring talk, but an important one nonetheless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fatima. Zara, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Zara. I'm studying my master's currently at UCL in social development practice.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Zara, for coming and helping us out today. Hamza, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, everybody. This is Hamza. Just a quick introduction about myself. I did my undergrad and master's in engineering from the University of Hong Kong. I currently live in Toronto, and I am working with Amazon. And yeah, really happy to be here and share some insights on the CV process.
Thank you so much, Hamza. Mariam, are you here with us?
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Mariam Naqvi. I have done my master's in social policy and development from the London School of Economics and Political Science. I'm currently working as an international development professional in Pakistan. and looking forward to speaking to you all about CV today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mariam. Fatima, if you could please take us to the next slide. So guys, if you remember from the first workshop, we outlined that there were certain things that you would be required in order to make a graduate application, whether it's at Oxford or at different schools in the UK. And these requirements and these workshops will help you apply to most graduate programs. There might be subtle details, such as, for example, it might not be called a statement of purpose. But these are generally the 5 things that we discussed in the first workshop. Essentially, you will have to have a statement of purpose, and in the statement of purpose, you describe your reasons for applying, your study and research interests, your career plans, and other relevant aspects of your background. Then you will need your curriculum vitae, so essentially what we'll be covering today, and the summary of your educational qualifications, experience, and skills. You'll need writing samples and essays that demonstrate not only your research skills, but your English language skills, scholarship essays, for example, also. And then academic qualification documents, such as official degree transcripts from your institutions, but also your TOEFL scores, your IELTS scores. And then finally, letters of recommendation from professors, mentors, or supervisors. Okay. So Zara, I'm going to hand over the slides to you. So from slides 5 to 8, if you could cover the presentation, and then we'll move on.
Sure. Okay, so the first thing obviously is, what is a CV? So a CV is a document that contains details about the educational qualifications and work experience of a candidate. So you have to remember that a CV is not the same as a resume or biodata. So a resume tends to be like a 1-page summary of your academic qualifications and work experience. And a CV is a more comprehensive document that captures your academic qualifications, work experience, and skills. Biodata is usually an account of your personal information and therefore not the most relevant on an academic setting. So across applications, there'll be many different requirements for a CV depending on the university, course, and the scholarship in question. Sorry, could you go on the next page? Thank you. So every CV has different headings and stuff. So you might not have all of these in your CV, but generally most CVs have your personal information. So that would be your name, sometimes your address, sometimes your phone number, and then your education, which is obviously one of the most important ones. And then work experience and your research experience if you're applying for example, a postgrad. And your publications. Not everyone has publications, so that's not a necessity, but obviously if you do, that's a good thing to add in. Also conferences, projects, or courses that you've applied to or you've been to. Awards, honors, and scholarships. So if you've ever received any, that would be a really good thing to add in. Skills. So for skills, you could add stuff like leadership, communication, or organization skills, which are obviously of use. Extracurricular activities, I think, is also a very important thing to add in. For example, sports is a very big thing that a lot of universities and a lot of places look for. Languages and references also, so that can be educational or from work. So an example would be, so first of all, your personal information is the first thing that you add on your CV. And underneath that, you can add your details, for example, your phone number or your email or like your LinkedIn profile. So if your name was Shah Khan, that's what it would look like underneath. Okay. Yeah, so I think 9 is someone else.
Yeah, so Mariam, I think if you could take over from slides 9 to 13.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. With regard to the education is a very important part of any CV. So it would be good if you include the name and personal details, followed by education qualifications in a reverse chronological order, most recent to the earlier ones. Include educational qualifications with a short description of the course and study outcomes, and the final grade, percentage, GPA, depending on application requirements. include the years through which you did the course. You can include your class rank or percentile if you think it will reflect favorably on your application. Try to include those courses and topics on your CV which you think are relevant to the job or a course or a graduate course you're applying for. One example can be, for example, development economics or international political economy, if these are the courses you have done in your undergraduate or graduate degree. And in case you are applying for a post of an economist or research fellow in economics, that would be really helpful for you if you include them in your CV. Next slide, please. So these are the two formats, two examples. One is like if you hold an MSc in finance and economics, you can include the course name, and then you can include the college name, location, your GPA, your studied modules on international, for example, studied modules on international finance, derivatives and financial risk analysis, portfolio management, corporate financial reporting. The course gave you exposure in econometric methodology and its usage in financial risk analysis that I shall be using to develop my future research. That's one example. Then you can include your dissertation with title, and then you can write my research is concerned with ... a 1 or 2 line description of your dissertation. Or you can add LLB, year 2, for example, campus, law center, University of Delhi, aggregate of 3 semesters, 63.3%, first division, 2018 to 21. Or a B honors in economics, the name of the university, your CGPA, your division, and the year you have attended the course. Or higher senior secondary, CB, CSC, your school, best 4 subjects, and your aggregate. So this is the chronological order with the recent most course at the top, and then followed by the ones that came later, right? Next slide, please. So when it comes to work and research experience, this can include your professional work and any position of responsibility you have held, including volunteer positions and internships. Mention your position, organization name, time spent at the organization, location, and describe your responsibilities. You can include your responsibilities either in bullet forms or bullet points or in a paragraph, depending on the length of the content. If you are applying for a research degree and have done any research internships or led any research projects, do include such experiences under this section. While describing your responsibilities on your CV, try to customize or tailor them in a way which you think can address the job description of the position you're applying for, or in the case of graduate school, the course you're applying for, or the degree you're applying for. One example can be, if you're applying for a role and it requires you to possess analytical thinking or problem-solving skills, then through your past work experiences, show the employer or the grad school that you are applying for how you acquired those 2 skills and apply it to a working situation or an academic position in case of the application to a grad school. Work and research experience, even in this section, we have 2 examples. So for instance, if you have worked as a project associate at Z Foundation, mention the date and the years, the month and the year, and then briefly describe in a paragraph, like here it is described, led a team of 5 to conduct research and data analysis on healthcare accessibility of domestic workers under the welfare schemes of the government of West Bengal. Responsibilities included guiding and training the team members, supervising all aspects of research and developing the financial publication. Or Institute of Human Rights, events officer, mention the location, city, and the country, and the time period. For example, you have worked from January 2020 till present, then mention that, and you can mention the same content in the form of a bullet. For example, here it's mentioned provide support for organizing conferences and seminars / webinars on topical issues in human rights, liaising with speakers and participants, creating content for social media and recording events for podcasts, also responsible for recording and disseminating event outputs, including writing up, editing, and proofreading academic reports. So these are 2 formats in which you can mention your work experience. One can be in the form of a paragraph and one can be in the form of 2 bullet points. So the next section can be your publications, in case you have. Some publications include relevant published works like articles, papers, blogs, journals, and books. If they are group projects or publications, mention other authors and highlight your name and contribution. Include online links and the month and year of your publication wherever possible. One example of that can be impact of COVID-19 vaccines on diabetes patients. The Lancet is the journal. in which it's published. The paper investigates the impact of the COVID-19 vaccines on people with type 2 diabetes. So that's just a brief description of your article or the paper that you have published in the Lancet. So from now, I will hand it over to Hamza.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hamza. If you could guide us through the next couple of slides.
Yeah, so I'll present the next 4 slides. And we just talked about some of our core experience that we like to add in our CVs, so our education and work experience. And then there's some supplemental information, right? So let's first talk about conferences, projects, and courses. So a conference may be a research conference, an industry conference related to some specialized discipline. So if you have attended these, it's always good to add this as supplemental information to your CV, especially if this is pretty relevant to where you're applying. Try to prioritize this. So if you do have a lot of conferences you may have been part of, try to prioritize the ones where you either presented or is very relevant to what you're applying for, and then be selective with what you are adding. Similarly, you might be taking courses related to, maybe a tech course, something that got you certified. So again, include these depending on how relevant they are for your particular application. And then professional certifications, similar to trainings and courses. It'll be good to add this information. Who was the certifying organization and what was the date you acquired the certification? So if we can go to the next slide. Awards, honors, and scholarships. So again, if you do have some awards, achievements, scholarships that you were awarded in the past, then this will be good information to add in your CV as well. This really highlights your high achievements in the different areas you might be getting these awards for. If we can go to the next one. Skills, again, depending on where you're applying, there is always a requirement of certain skills that are very important. If you're applying for a research role, then some past experience on data analysis or consuming large amounts of information. So there will be certain skills that are quite relevant to where you're applying. Again, be selective. As an individual, we have a lot of skills in a lot of areas, right? But because ultimately your CV will be 2 pages, 3 pages max, be selective with the skills and what really supplements the information you already have there and what makes you more suitable for the particular university or role you're applying for, right? If you can go to the next one. Extracurricular activities, again, they give the reader of your CV an overall picture of who you are, right? What your strengths are. This can include sports, if you took part in debating competition, moot court competitions, and there can be other examples as well. Again, key point, similar to all the rest of the sections, is to be selective, make sure what you're adding does add value to your overall CV and is relevant to the place you're applying to. And extracurricular for university applications, in particular for scholarship applications as well, is something that people do tend to look at just to get an overall idea that what do you do apart from your course study or work experience. So definitely think about this one. And if we can go to the next one, I believe languages. Again, your particular role or the particular university you're applying for, obviously there will be a medium of instruction. So highlight the languages you're proficient in. You might be advanced in English, you might be a native speaker of Urdu, you might have a good grip of some other languages. So list your languages, your proficiencies. It does again help show your communication skills, and definitely something important to add in your CV. And last slide is on references. Again, in the past, you might have worked under the supervision of certain people. You might have worked with certain managers within your teams. So again, it is good to add these, just so if there's any validation that's needed, people know who to contact. Again, referees, if you are adding them, make sure you do check with them, because they might be contacted for verifying certain information or just getting a bit more insights about you. So I'll just read out the last one. In the CV you submit for your graduate application, you don't include a references head, simply because you might be required to add referees separately. So yeah, if you are, as part of your applications, adding details of referees or providing referees in a different place somewhere, maybe in a form, then this is something you might not need to add in your CV. If you do add them, definitely check with the people you are adding and make sure they can, if they're contacted, they can provide some relevant information about you. So I believe those were my slides, and then I will pass on for the next slides to Fatma. I guess it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Hamza. And Fatma, if you could please take over.
Thank you so much, Hamza. I will be talking about some of the last few sections and just generally how you present your CV, the kind of language and the kind of formatting that you use for it. The language that you use is super important, and it needs to be very straightforward and clear. Avoid using very long paragraphs and passive voices. It has to be something that utilizes an active voice, because it's presenting something that you have done. So it's an archive, a repository of all the achievements and skills and interests of yours. So just make sure that you use active voice, and just make sure that it's not too long, because people tend to skim through it. So you don't want any important information about your achievements and skills to be missed. Use bullet points with action words. We've provided a list of action words that can be used along with an online guide on CV writing, which is available on the website. So you can refer to that and use any action words that you seem fit to describe the work experiences that you have. Moving on to formatting. The formatting is super important, because the first thing that comes up is you see the CV and then you move on to reading it. So just make sure that it is readable and clear. It's not too like all over the place. It's consistent in its design. There is ample spacing in between. There is proper font sizing being used. One of the main things to remember while doing this is remember who it is being sent to and what is the purpose, depending on which the information should be organized and highlighted. So if it is for a university application, just make sure you're highlighting appropriate experiences that are relevant to your course. Similarly for research, like highlighting appropriate experiences that are highlighting your research skills. Another really important thing is that once you have prepared your CV, get it printed to check if it looks neat and readable. I think in COVID times, it's mostly like we have to submit online copies, but it's good to have a hard copy and see how that looks like, so you also know what it would actually look like. Font and highlighting. So choose a readable and an attractive font. Times New Roman is one example. Arial, Calibri, those are like the standard examples, but you can choose any other example as well, not too flashy, but something that is easily readable. It is best advised to not use more than 2 fonts in one CV, because that can be distracting for the reader. Use a minimum of 11.11 font size. Don't try to go below that, because it can become very small and very illegible and unreadable. Do not overuse bold, italics, and highlighting because that can be distracting for the reader. And if you do need to highlight certain headers and sections, use bold, since too much italics and underlining can make it look clumsy. So you can just make the section heading a bold in bold formatting. Coming to headings, maintain a consistent style. That's something that I've already talked about. When it comes to style, it includes the color, the size, the font style, and the capitalization. So for example, if you have like education as one heading and work experience as another heading, make sure that both of them look the same in terms of design. Another super important thing is that avoid using other as a section because it just makes it seem that that's a section that could be skipped. So that's something that we would recommend avoiding. Some general tips. An easy step is to make a master CV document. So that basically is a compilation of all the experiences that you have, all the activities, everything. So that's just everything that you have. And then wherever you need to make an application, whether it's for a job, whether it's for a university, you can just like skim through that and then take relevant information and add to the CV that you want to submit. It just saves time and it's easier to refer to because as you gain more experiences, you tend to forget the earlier one. So it's just a good repository to have. Another important thing to note is that most universities expect you to submit CVs that don't exceed 2 pages. So just make sure that you're sticking within the 2-page limit. Scholarship applications usually provide guidance on how to tailor a CV. They would usually provide you guidance about what sorts of headings to include, what sorts of skills they want to see. So that's something that would give you an idea of what you can include in your CV. And finally, it's extremely important for you to highlight your involvement in academia and research projects, particularly when it comes to university applications, grad school applications. And especially if you're applying for research degrees like PhDs and DPhils, highlight any previous research experience you've done, like even if it's writing an undergrad thesis or a dissertation, in your master's, any publications that you've done, any research internships you've done, if you've worked with any professor on some research. So all of those are important things to highlight if you're applying for a research degree. Some general tips, tailor your CV, customize it to make sure that it's suiting the application. Just include all the relevant information. And as Hamza also said, be selective with what you're sharing. Everything is important, but it doesn't need to go into the CV that you're submitting. Make sure you read and reread your program's requirements so it's aligned with that. And then similarly, just like tailor the language and the skills and the accomplishments that you're putting in. So it's aligned to the program. You just need to make sure, highlight that you are the best fit for that program. Focus on academic background and related research experience. Be sure to emphasize your academic achievements and include any scholarships, grants, and publications that you've received. Keeping it simple, I think that's a very important thing because often we tend to overcomplicate it. Just like make sure that it's easy to read, it's organized, it's simple in terms of its design, not too flashy. There's a clear heading and there's simple fonts. Use a good CV template. You can refer online. There are like a lot of templates online. Word has its own templates. So you can refer to those templates. I guess like one advice that I was given by someone when doing grad school applications was that look at it as a story. So every part of it is adding to your story. So the CV is just one part of it. So make sure that it's coming in together with all the other materials that you have. And I think that is it. Ali, I hand it over back to you.
Thank you so much, Fatima. So everyone, that was our presentation, the conclusion of our presentation for week 3. Now we'll be taking some questions from the audience. You can ask questions to the panelists. If you could put your questions in the chat or even raise your hand, then we will continue with the questions. So the recording, I think, will be provided. You should receive instructions later on with the email. We have a question. We have from Tayyiba. Do you want to ask? Yeah, Tayyiba, if you could ask, you can unmute yourself.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, sir. It was a great talk. Actually, I want to ask, can we add picture in the CV? Actually, I skip the first few slides.
So as far as, I mean, obviously maybe the panelists can sort of jump in, but not normally. And pictures aren't normally added to the CV. At least when I did my grad school applications, I didn't add my photo, and I don't recall any of my peers adding their photos either. So yes.
Actually, I want to approach the professors for the PhD fellowship. Like I'm doing the PhD, but I want to do some fellowship program abroad, like for 1 year or 1.5 years. So I want to approach some professors. So that's why I asked that either should I add picture or not.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Hamza. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, on a picture, it varies. Typically, it's not mandatory. And typically, unless it's required, I guess it might be optional. If we think about it, does it add value? Does your picture make you a more suitable candidate? Probably not. You can always share a professional profile if you're keen to, share some more information, maybe your LinkedIn. Sometimes in certain places, people do add pictures in their CVs, but I would say optional. And just ask yourself, is it adding any value? Is it making me more suitable for that particular role? And if the answer is no, then yeah, probably you can live without it.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question that if the disciplines varies, like if I talk about myself, I did MPhil in microbiology, MSc in botany, and now I'm doing PhD, in sort of in healthcare. So actually, I have seen that the multidisciplinary approach has been applied in the European countries. Many professors had diverse background, either in their BSc or in even though in the MSc. Are these things are like acceptable in the CV? Or should we add some sort of webinars or such things, workshops related to the program to make it like more suitable for the particular job or program?
Any of the panelists maybe have any contribution, at least from I can imagine that tailoring having one specific CV for having one CV that you use for every single program, it's not necessary. In fact, I don't think that's it might even be smarter to tailor your CV depending on the program. So each program will have certain requirements and certain skills, and you can tailor your CV to each application. So for example, you talk about, you've noticed that in a particular program is professors seem to have more of a multidisciplinary background. If you can emphasize these elements, I think it could be valuable. But do any of the panelists have any contributions? And then we're going to take a question. We're also going to take a question from Dani, and then so yes. Any other panelists have anything else to add?
Yeah, I guess it is always good to show your breadth of experience and skills and, diverse experience, especially since you were mentioning that, okay, I have some experience, I guess, educational experience in botany and then a few other disciplines. Again, because this is your, I guess, educational experience, it would be a good idea to add, and then you can always focus on your key achievements in this particular course or educational experience you had, and there's always transferable skills, right? I'll give you an example. I've studied engineering. Now I work in tech. When I got into tech, even though my past experience was not related to tech, there were transferable things, right? There were things that would still add value to what I was looking to do. So yeah, even if it is not, strictly the discipline you're applying for, think about what things are transferable, what were your bigger achievements in that, and just showcase your overall breadth of experience and well-roundedness. I think that can always help, especially for education. I guess it will be a good idea to add it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Ali,
Next
you're on
question.
mute.
Dani, do you want to go ahead? Yeah.
Hello, sir. Thank you for giving me a chance. I just wanted to ask about the project that I had done at my bachelor level. I have some confusion, which I asked back then in the previous session, that I have done MSc in chemistry, which is equivalent to bachelor. And I have first class bachelor degree, which means that I have 87% or 3.92 GPA out of 4. So I was applying for a master's degree to Ireland and then some other countries. And majority of my professors suggested me that I should apply directly for PhD. So while applying for PhD, I had so many problems. Like I have done my MSc in analytical chemistry, while now I want to continue it in organic chemistry. So my question is, I have background in analytical chemistry. I have my final year project in analytical chemistry, and I want to apply for organic chemistry. Should I add my final year project or thesis into the CV? Also, I have some certifications that are not related to core chemistry, like in safety, like in handling chemicals, which I got from my office. Should I add those certifications into the CV or not?
Okay. Do any of the panelists have any contribution? Otherwise, I can add something, because obviously I'm not doing chemistry whatsoever, but I think there's a similar kind of strategy, and there are certain things that you can do and that would be helpful, I think, for you in this. But maybe the panelists have something to add.
I think just generally the rule of thumb is that whatever the course you're applying for, just make sure that whatever project that you're putting in and the certifications that you have, they're aligned to the kind of course that you're applying for. For example, like my undergrad was in history and political science. So my experience and all my research work was related to history, and my undergrad thesis was also on history. But then I ended up applying for a master's in education policy, which required a lot of quant-related skills as well. So my job was to figure out how to present my undergrad thesis as related to the work that I wanted to do in education and related to the kind of program that there was. So I guess it's about how you make the connection of the work that you've done with the particular program that you're applying for. And the specifics is something that you would know because you are in that discipline and you are the expert in that subject matter. So I think there you would have to rely on and trust your judgment over there.
Okay, ma'am, I got it. I have another question. Some of my friends who are in Europe at the moment, most of them suggested me not to add my gold medal distinction in the CV, as during the interview, my professor or the panelist, maybe I'm applying for scholarship, so I would definitely be facing a panel of the professors for the scholarship. So my friends too suggested me that I should not mention that gold medal, achievement, as it would make them question me a lot. Is that correct, or should I add it? Like I should not mention my GPA or something related to it, because doing this would make the panelist ask me a lot of questions.
I don't think, I mean, obviously maybe the panelists can sort of jump in, our own panelists can jump in also, but I really don't think I mean, they all, at least in Oxford, they emphasize mentioning academic achievements because it gives you an edge. And all programs will require an interview from you. Not all of them will, some will. And it's one way to set yourself apart from other candidates if you're able to get a gold medal distinction. At the same time, every institution, you know, they're different. There's a different approach or strategy for every single institution. If you have friends at a particular institution who are saying this, then it might be good advice. But, you know, obviously the kind of stuff we're discussing today is quite general. And it's not, there isn't like a rule that applies to everything. Okay, so, but I will say that in general, like at least when I went for my own program, a strength that was highlighted in my application when I got feedback was the distinctions. It was the GPA. So I would not, at least for me, that's one thing that helped me get in. And that's according to the feedback I got from the scholarship. But this is for Oxford. And obviously, but the other panelists can step different institutions.
Okay, one more question. Sorry, I'm taking a lot of time. One more question. I was, taking suggestions from you guys that should I apply for master's studies or PhD directly? What should I do?
I think you should go for a master's first because PhD would be very research intensive. And if you like to go for a PhD, it's better to do a master's first because then you will get the taste of the research level that's especially in UK or even in US. You will get the, you will get the experience of working in a higher degree, in a higher education degree. And that will help you in your PhD as well. With regards to your question about gold medal, I myself am a gold medalist, and it helped me not only just secure an admission to LSE, but also win a master's award over there. So I think I would agree with Ali that the distinctions and the GPAs and the awards, the achievements, the academic achievements, they do matter, and they do set you apart from the other applicants while applying for scholarships, especially as well as the grad schools. These competitive schools like Oxford, LSE, UCL, they particularly look up for these distinctions and these awards that you have in your CV and your academic background. Your academic record is good. So it's always a good idea if you have these distinctions, gold medals, then do mention them. And of course, also go for a master's first before directly jumping to a PhD.
Okay, ma'am. The one thing is I have MSc. So whenever I email the professor for a master's study supervision, and then they see my transcript and degree, and they say that we cannot award you MSc degree twice. How should I respond to them?
So, Danny, we're going to take some questions from the chat as well. Okay. I mean, you're asking very, very, very good questions, very relevant questions, but make sure that you can also email some of the panelists about this because these are very relevant questions. I'll say one last thing. Is a PhD is very dependent on a supervisor, on a supervisor relationship, and especially if you're trying to bridge a gap from one form to another, a master's might be helpful. But we're going to take some questions. Rao, you had a question, and then we're going to take a question from Zubia Wakar, who mentioned Oxford uses a term called narrative resume. So first, Rao, let's go to you, and then we can go to Zubia's question.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for this enlightening session. I actually do have a couple of questions regarding CV. First question would be about the length of the CV. Me being a bachelor student, is it okay for me to have a CV, a 3-page CV or not? And second question would be about the publications. If you are interested in a specific area of research and you have a publication that is not, related, not aligning with that research area, and also it is not, it is published in a journal that is not recognized by Scopus or Web of Science. It is just a HSC recognized journal. So would it be worth mentioning that publication as well in your CV? That might set you apart from rest of the candidates who are applying for the same degree. I wonder if I'm clear enough, or you are.
clear.
Yeah,
Do
thank
you
you.
have anything to add?
Yeah, I have. So with regards to the publication, I think if it's AGC recognized, and of course you have not studied abroad before, or you have written on for international publications, international journals, I think it's good enough to mention it on your CV, as long as you can provide an online link to it. It's recognizable and it will add value to your CV. So I think go for it. Go for the publications part. And sorry for
And
the second part of your question. What was that? I missed it
it was
slightly.
about the length of the CV, academic CV. Can
Okay, so
academic CV go beyond
so
2-page or 3-page CV as well?
So ideally, I think if you are a bachelor student, it should be 2 pages, and this is like a rule of thumb for everyone even. But since you are just a student, so it would be better if you just add up all the details in a concise manner. CV should ideally be either 2 or 3 pages, not more than that, because as the panelists have told you in this workshop as well, people just skim through it. So it's best the more concisely you've written your information, presented the facts, and highlighted your achievements, the better it will look. And the more chances will be of you getting recognized, either for a grad school or for a scholarship or whatever you're applying.
All right, much obliged. I wonder if you would be kind enough to answer another query that is seemingly unrelated to that session. It's about, you mentioned earlier that we will be assigned some mentors. So I wonder if you have already assigned the mentors to the mentees or not, because I haven't really received any email confirming who I will be, interacting with.
Ali can answer better, I think.
I believe that the mentors have already been assigned, but I think I'll ask Project sort of EduAccess for more details about this, because from the OPP side, I think the finalization has taken place already, so everybody has been sort of assigned mentors. But let me check on this, and then we will just give me a couple of minutes and we'll do this. One good question we had from the chat from Zubia was, what is a narrative CV? So for example, Oxford emphasizes this idea of a narrative CV. Do any of the panelists have, could any of the panelists elaborate on this? Okay, so as far as I'm aware, Zubia, the traditional CVs, when you're applying to jobs, they're looking for example, professional experience. So although that's really relevant for grad school as well, a narrative CV focuses a lot more, for example, on your research, on the specific research skills you have that could be relevant for, and that could be relevant for your graduate program. So the kind of stuff that we've covered today would be relevant, for example, for Oxford, because many of the people who applied to Oxford have inputted in this sort of workshop. Abdul Zabur, you're mentioning it seems like no one is assigned a mentor and mentee dashboard. So essentially there was an application process for the mentor and mentees, and if you were successful, then you would have been assigned a mentor. So there was an application process, and we finalized certain candidates and individuals for the mentor and menteeship program. Okay, let me see if we have.
Just on the mentor, I'm not sure if emails were sent out to mentees. I certainly got an email with the mentee who was assigned to me, and it's up to me to reach out to them in the next 3 days, and I got it yesterday. So hopefully for some of you, you might hear from your mentors in the next couple of days. So yeah.
Yeah, Hamza, thank you for that. So yes, that's correct, because, for example, I received an email saying that I've been allocated a mentee, and now it's up to the mentors to reach out to the mentee. So if you have been selected, if you have been selected as a mentee, your mentor will should reach out to you in a couple of days. So this is the thing, yeah, and you would have heard back that you have been selected. And if you haven't heard back that you've been selected, then unfortunately for this round, you weren't finalized or shortlisted. But if you did receive an email saying that you've been selected and you filled out the declaration form, now it's up to the mentors to reach out to the mentees, and this will be happening in the coming days or weeks. Okay, let's see. What other questions do we have? Let me see. Are there any other questions? Let's take one final question. Qasim, you had a question? Well, Qasim and Nurul Ain, maybe you had questions, and then we can go from there.
Hi. Hello, I'm Nurul Ain. Thank you for taking my question. Okay, so I just want to ask that how important is the CV as compared to the rest of the application? Like, we're usually under the impression, especially for PhD candidates, that it's actually the statement of purpose that is most important. But I just want to ask, like, how important is it that the CV is also very competitive? And also, like, what kind of language should we be using? Should we be using like subject-specific terms? Because there's going to be an entire panel that will be perhaps reviewing all the documents of the application, and not all of them may be like well versed in the subject-specific terms. So yeah, thank you.
Do any of the panelists want to comment on this?
Maybe on the importance part, it is one of the things that is important. Obviously, there will be other things as well. So there shouldn't be anything stopping you from building the best CV you can for a particular role. So definitely spend the time on it. It obviously does get looked at together with the other material that you put out as well. It's just one of the other mechanisms to show why you are very suitable for a particular role or particular course. So that's what I would add there. And your next question was maybe briefly, again, maybe some of the other panelists can add, but about specific terms or making it too, technical. Maybe some of the readers might not be that technical in that particular discipline. So make it, readable. Definitely in some cases, you will need to add the technical stuff, but also focus on, what were the results? What did you achieve? So, find that balance. Because if you are applying for a technical discipline, you have technical experience, then you will possibly need to add some specific things that an ordinary person might not know, but try to find that balance so that, you still have the results, what you achieved, what were the outcomes, that people can understand.
Yeah, I think a good point, Hamza. Yeah, someone else wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the second question that the language bit, just adding to what Hamza said, I think it's also like important to distinguish like when you're applying for scholarships where there might be a mix of people on the panel, and when you're applying for just a grad program and then the grad selection committee is going to shortlist people for the scholarship. So we can assume that the graduate selection committee is going to be people who are particularly well versed in your program. So maybe there you can use language that is technical, and like you would assume that they're professors in the program, so they would be familiar with the technical language within that discipline. When it comes to like scholarship applications, I guess it would be, I think that's where like Hamza's advice would be very helpful to look at.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that, Fatima. And I think a lot of these questions will also be clarified in relation to, when you have been, when you work with your mentor. So just for confirmation, I spoke to, I just messaged one of the Project EduAccess members, and they said that everybody who's on this call is a shortlisted mentee. So your mentors have been told that, they have been assigned mentees, and they will reach out to you shortly. So it depends really on the mentors and them reaching out to you. So if you're in this call, then you will be assigned a mentor. And the second thing is, we had some questions regarding the recording and when it will be available. This should be available by email. You get an email with this. So we had one final question from Qasim. Qasim, you had a question, and then we will conclude today's workshop.
Hello everyone, good evening. I have a question about the CV format. We have a Europass CV. So is Europass CV is a standard format for the UK universities or other universities? And I have one more question about the CV, because in some universities like University of Cambridge, so you will have one CV for admission and the same CV. So is the Europass CV is a standard format for for the scholarship and as well as admissions? Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you so much, Qasim. I myself not so familiar with the Europass CV format. I mean, I did a quick Google search when you asked me this question, and it seems the format seems appropriate, but yeah, I don't know. Do any of the other panelists have an idea or about what kind of sort of template they used or format they used?
Well, I think as someone mentioned here about a narrative CV, it really depends on the school or the university you are trying to apply for. Normally, the grad schools, they do mention what format do they require. So if it's Europass CV, that's what they require, then you can submit in that format. But otherwise, if it's a narrative CV, like with the Oxford case, you can submit that. But generally, I think it's not that Europass CV or the particular format that matters. It's mainly the school or the university that you're applying for. What kind of requirements do they have with regards to the CV and its format? It's more like the statement of the purpose. Even they have mentioned the fonts, the style of writing, the word length. So it really depends on the university that you're applying for. I hope it helps.
All right, thank you so much, Mariam. Thank you so much. So yeah, I think we're going to conclude today's session. Just very quickly, I also saw some questions about if you already have a master's, can you apply? Yes, you can. And yeah, Zubia, you mentioned the application fees at Oxford is very high, and most of the Pakistani students cannot afford it. I think the Oxford Pakistan program might have something in the works, some sort of mechanism in the works for application fee waiver. This isn't finalized at the moment. So, and I believe that, yeah, so for the time being, this is something that we're working on, but I'm not sure if there's a specific mechanism in place at the moment for the application fee waiver. And very quickly also, while we graduate, we don't have experience related to the field of studies. If you, Mohammed Usman, if your final project is relevant to anything that you've done in your undergraduate that's relevant for your application, you should include in your CV. And we discussed extracurricular activities and leadership experience. It is a good idea to include in your CV, but whatever is in the CV is essentially just geared towards the program. And then Zara also emphasized something that a CV should ideally be 1 to 2 pages long. 1 to 2 pages of sort of very specific focus on how you possess the skills or the research experience for that particular program, and then you can change it around for the degree. Okay, so like we mentioned, you don't need to have the same CV for each program. You can, if you've done 5 projects or have 5 experiences, in 1 or 2 pages, discuss the ones that are relevant for one program, and then for the other program, you can discuss the other one. And aside from that, I just want to thank the panelists. Thank you so much, the 4 of you, for taking out your time. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for your questions. I hope this was a fruitful workshop. And we will be hopefully joining you, and you will be joining us for the upcoming series. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.